All right, welcome back to the Godfall Universe podcast. It's me, Dan Evans, writer and co-creator of the Godfall Universe, and I'm here with Josh Adams again.
Yep. Artist and whipping boy of the Godfall universe.
The artist is always the whipping boy. You're the one that has to do all the work.
Exactly. Hit all the deadlines.
Yep.
It's
What
all good though. I enjoy it.
all I do is draw some stick figures and say, "Hey, what if this happened?" And you're like, and then you make it happen.
And then I'm like, well, what if it happens? But if it happened much better.
Yeah. What if it was way better and like way cooler looking than this?
What if it happened like this?
Well, let's just jump into it this week. Something called our we got to do a podcast every week, so there's that. But something called our eye that we're like, hey, let's do a. So this one is going to be titled "Anesthetic Abortion Part 2," and like we might just make this a running series of whenever we see just god awful imagery and statues and stuff. So
Eventually, it just becomes reviews of Nicolas Cage movies.
so here's what we're looking at here. And for anybody on
Jeez.
Spotify who can't see it, Denmark, there was a like Denmark Museum of Women or something like that, or Women's Museum of Denmark, and they have since changed it recently to the like Denmark Gender Museum, which is very vague. I mean, does it include like just it's just a bunch of dudes now? Like, what is it? It's a bunch of Vikings from like Denmark history or something.
I would go to that museum. They got a Monomarth playing the whole like everywhere you go.
And if you can't see it, they put a statue out front, and it's it's a man, a grown man, a naked
Is it?
man.
Is it?
It's that's a dude with breasts.
And a penis.
Yeah, like
And a man bun and a
it's
beard.
a naked man with a man bun and a beard and breasts feeding an infant, but he's not feeding an infant because he can't feed an infant. So, um, it's just
that
so
that titty's got
weird.
some soy milk in it.
Yeah, it's just oh god, the statue is called Agape. Yeah, this is a which can you give us the history lesson properly of agape, the term?
I mean, it's it means it's like Greek for love, correct?
Yeah, but isn't it like
Specifically,
the
like
divine?
God's
Yeah, the
love.
divine love.
Yeah, divine love is agape.
Oh. So of course, like the natural instinct is to be disgusted, just because it's a grown man, it's a naked man trying to breastfeed a child. Um, and of course, like it's kind of comparable to Michelangelo's David, but of course, David is clearly a man, as in he's a man and has no breasts. But the differences are pretty stark. It's like even just the quality, like this statue here. And again, if you can't see it on Spotify, I'm sorry, but the statue, it's not as well made as David.
Well, to be fair, a lot of that is a matter of physique. David is like stacked, and this dude looks like one of us, but with breasts. Look at them little legs,
Yeah,
little chicken
the
legs.
legs are, but like it's not even like the only part of it that's feminine really is the breast, because like
Is
even
the breast? Yeah,
the hips are still male hips.
yeah,
The
yeah.
arms, he has,
And
yeah.
to go back, just because I don't want anybody. I mean, somebody can correct me if they want to, but a literal definition of agape is specifically fatherly love,
Uh huh.
and so it does make sense why that's the title of this. Is like it's because it specifically means a father's love, and then biblically it's used mostly to talk about like the
Yeah,
love of the heavenly
the
father.
defined
But
father, yeah.
yeah, but there is a fatherly aspect to the Greek word agape. So I understand why that is being used here.
Yeah, but that doesn't make
I'm not
sense
saying I
because
approve of
yeah,
it, but
it doesn't make sense because the thing is breastfeeding, and it's just so confusing because this isn't. If we're gonna jump into it,
you just said the thing is
well,
breastfeeding,
I'm gonna
and
tell you.
I
I'm
went
gonna
back to like to like The John Carpenter movie.
Yeah,
Like
the
Kurt Russell's
thing.
going to come in and burn it.
Well, I'm gonna go
Kill
in.
it with fire.
I'm gonna go into that. Like, this isn't a trans thing. Like, this isn't a trans idea
No,
because this is not a trans person. This
no.
is a man with breasts, like natural. This is what this is a like a hermaphrodite. One that has never really existed before. This is an abstraction of a hermaphroditic idea. Like, this isn't like, I don't know, if I were a trans
Either that or it
person.
could be a man that used steroids.
Yeah. well, well, I'm saying, as far as what the artist is going for, if this
No, I know
being,
what you
yeah,
mean.
if this
Yeah,
being
it's
can
not.
breastfeed, it's not a trans person. It's not a trans man, a trans
Yeah,
woman,
absolutely not. Yeah.
because no trans man, I mean, I mean, like, the genitalia here is like natural. It's natural. It's not man-made. That's what he's trying
Mm-hmm.
to portray, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. That's not the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is, if I were a trans person, I wouldn't feel quote unquote represented by this. This is a divine idea. I use divine in the sense of, not material.
Right.
So I don't see how this benefits like the trans idea in our culture. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I also don't know why we need a museum about gender.
it's very strange, and it was apparently it marked International Men's Day.
I love that dude's face is so close to the penis.
I wonder if that's the artist, and I hope it is, because it looks like the statue. He's got the man bun and the beard.
Yeah, it does. I bet it is a self-portrait. Okay,
The only
well,
problem is, like, the statue has more of a the Roman beard,
right.
and then this guy has like more of a Middle Eastern kind of beard. That's Which, I mean, hey, maybe he was doing it in the style of the
Whatever.
Renaissance, whatever. But this thing is ugly. Like, let's be honest. Like, this is it. There's something off-putting about it, and like I said, to me, it's not even that it's that it would be politically trans, because I know people will bring up that argument against what I'm saying. It's that this is supposed to embody the divine hermaphrodite, which is a pagan and quite frankly disgusting idea. Um, like, this is the closest comparison to it is the Baphomet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now there is another one in alchemy, and I forget it. The divine hermaphrodite.
You about to do a search for that?
Rebus,
Like
yeah,
live on screen? Okay.
yeah, Rebus.
I
It
like
was
Romulus and Rebus.
No, that was Romulus and Remus.
Remus,
Yeah,
Rebus,
after one has gone through this.
Rebus and Butthead.
Rebus I would pay to see that movie. The rebus is the end product of the alchemical magnum opus or great work. After one has gone through the stages of putrefaction, putrefaction, putrefaction. I don't know how you say that, and purification, separating opposing qualities. Those qualities are united once more in what is sometimes described as the divine hermaphrodite. That's that Gnosticism idea as well. Um,
What's
yeah.
interesting to me, is we've got Denmark apparently has this gender museum, but aren't these the same? Like, isn't this the same set of voices that are usually telling us that gender is a construct, a social construct anyway? Like, what do you need a museum for to explore something that you don't think is anything but an idea?
Because it's to solidify the new idea. That's what everything is.
I
Like,
mean, what
yeah.
kind of exhibit would you have in a gender museum?
I don't know, but I mean, the whole point of it is, what you do is you say that there's a binary. You tear down the binary by saying that they're just ideas, and then you say they're just ideas until you can put up your new idea. That's all it is. That's how all
Yeah.
of this works in every sense of the word and way. And like I said, this to me, this doesn't have to be a political thing with
No, it
the
doesn't.
trans stuff. It's just, I mean, it's like, stop. I mean, just you're drawing imagery from paganism, man. Like, and I know you're in Denmark. They're like the the Swede. Not the Swedes, but like the Nordic countries tend to be very have pagan roots.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Well,
not
to be fair,
anymore, but
so does Christianity. So
well, Christianity is great at incorporating things. But
Yeah.
yeah, this is the Baphomet, which is a hermaphrodite, and I don't know, man. Just to run with that, like, this is what happens, kind of like when you say like men and women don't exist, and you get this thing here, this new god, basically, this new hermaphrodite, and what it's done is displaced women.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's been when it comes to the arguments lately about and whether it be like in situations like this, if whether it be in art, whether it be in the idea specifically lately of like within women's sports, it's become such a controversial topic. You know, it's that idea of, you know, if you're going to take this ideology
Mm-hmm.
and push it, the only way that this ideology stands is if it displaces or and disrespects women.
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're saying, look, you don't have to be a woman to be a woman. I know that sounds really stupid. It's because it is foolishness. But you know, the reality is you got this whole group of people that are saying that, like, look, all these years of all the work that has gone into providing a safe place for women, providing, you know, civil rights and liberties to women that are, you know, to give them a space to excel and to be able to have, you know, their own thing. Let's invade it with men who
Mm-hmm.
claim to be women. And, you know, it's a problem when, you know, all of the women's sports awards and things that you could possibly like aspire as a woman to attain have been given to biological males.
Yeah.
You know, what do you have to aspire to as a woman if you know that, like, I could be the strongest, fastest, best woman in this field, and I don't have a chance of competing
Yeah.
and winning.
Well, and here's the thing: I've got friends that are transgender, or I would say
I do too.
transsexual, because I don't. I'm just gonna say I don't think gender is an actual word. Like, it was made up for research that turned out to not be true. And I know that it's like supposed to be supposedly the roles that are acted out, or the presentation basically of sexuality. But like, that just, I mean, that's sexuality, you know, and that's how it was until the 20th century. And I don't think we've discovered anything new. But what I guess what to say is, this is it's such a weird thing. It's such a destruction of the material and the divine, because this can't be achieved. This being here, and that's why I call it, not to be cruel, but it's like, it literally isn't it, because it's a hermaphrodite. It's a literal hermaphrodite. In idea, because you could say it's a figurative hermaphrodite. You know what I mean? This does
Yeah.
not exist in real life. There is no actual hermaphrodite with functioning sex organs that can also breastfeed. That doesn't exist. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so we can't reach that. It's you're giving someone an idea they can't aspire to, and no one can. And before someone throws it back on me that I'm a Christian, it's like the whole point is that Christ is the only one that can reach that ideal. We do have an unreachable idea, but it was reached, and that's why we followed the guy who reached it. There's no
Exactly.
reaching this ideal, and no one can reach it. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're a man or a woman, and you try to incorporate the other, you can't incorporate the other fully. In what you have to do is abandon one for the other, and then you get neither.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm kind of speaking more artistically, but also physically. It's just, if if you're a transsexual person, or if you prefer the term transgender, like, I don't care, do whatever you want. I'll call you by your preferred, like, name and pronoun, to your face. It doesn't matter to me. But this idea, like the idea behind that is putting it more in culture, is it's gonna do is just kind of destroy differences until there's nothing, because you can't incorporate the two. We're not, like, alchemy isn't real. And
All right. Well, so you know, one of the things that I think I don't think it's like you can sit back and say, well, this one person or one group of people
Yeah.
are behind this, but there is a growing ideology shared by many people, and what the ultimate goal is they want to create a society that's entirely homogeneous.
Yeah.
And we see this in a lot of different places. We see it in the world of, businesses, and when in the news, and most
Mm-hmm.
industry. There was a time when there were a lot of different industries run by a lot of different people. There was competition that was good and healthy competition, and capitalism working at its best. You had everybody earning because on the basis of how well they worked. How good
Yeah.
is your
Well,
idea? Can you
that's
do something
yeah.
new?
That's the idea. Yeah. At least it
Right.
was. Yeah.
And so now what we have is, you have a small number of corporations who own everything. You got Disney who owns Star Wars, and they own Marvel, and they own this, and they're buying everything, and then they make everything the same.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing that across the board in every aspect of our society, and they're trying to do it to human beings as well. They want to eradicate the idea of anything that separates us and makes us unique.
Mm-hmm.
They want to eradicate. They want homogeneousness. And what's interesting to me, as a looking at it from the standpoint of, as a believer
Yeah.
in a Christian God, Judeo Christian values, all that stuff, I look at the New Testament, and you see Paul. He talks about this idea, saying there's now no longer a Greek or Roman or Jew or
Male,
man or
female.
woman, male or female. Yeah, none of these things. He's not saying God and through Christ has come to eradicate
All
your
differences.
you know your our differences. What he's saying is our differences, whether you're a man or a woman, Greek or Jew, any of those things, is these are not the things that define you as an identity. The idea is that you become defined by Christ, but in no way was God, if God wanted us all to be the same, he would not have created so much variety
Mm-hmm.
in creation. And I think this idea of trying to so blur the line between what it means to be this, that, and the other, and what's particularly insidious is the way that they drive this agenda home on children who are still, their prefrontal cortex is still undeveloped. They're still literally like jello brains, and they're so impressionable at that age, to try at a young age to eradicate anything that makes you unique.
Yeah. Well,
And
and that gives structure. That's the whole thing. Is like children have
yeah,
to
and
have
that
tons of
creates a
structure.
framework.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and when you
they're trying to
remove, yeah,
tear down that
you
framework.
remove framework, you just confuse them to a ridiculous point. It's like if you told a child they weren't a human, you know.
And
It's
so, I know some people may be listening to this and thinking, "Well, guys, aren't y'all supposed to be like a nerdy podcast?" Well, let's think about this. When's the last time that you went and saw a movie that didn't look like every other movie you've ever seen lately?
exactly that. All of this is
When's the
tied
last
together, and art is the spearhead of it because art is how it gets into culture.
Every movie since Transformers looks like Transformers
Well, to me,
or Marvel.
everything since Spider Verse looks like Spider Verse, and I'm not trying to go off on a
Yeah,
tangent, but I'm not excited
yeah.
about the Ninja
If
Turtles
you
movie because it looks like Spider Verse.
if you go to the comic book store and you grab a DC book, a Marvel book, an Image book, and whatever, an IDW book, whatever, if you open them all up to a random page, you will not look at those books and see much that doesn't look. You can look at one and think that could fit in that other one.
Yeah, especially the colors. The coloring is
And there
so
was a
bad.
time, there was a time, and back, you and I both, like, we were 80s, 90s long box guys, so like we love digging into that older stuff. Every book, every single title had a unique art style and art team, and Spider-Man looked entirely different style wise from a Jim Lee Marvel like X-Men book,
Mm-hmm.
right? Sam Keith was, if he was doing a issue of the Max. It
or
looked
yeah,
wildly different than what
or
Todd
or
McFarlane was
Batman.
doing.
You could see those ears
Right,
from a mile away. Yeah.
right. So like there was a time when what was celebrated in the comic book industry was innovation and creativity, and now the things that get celebrated are the things that toe a certain ideology and not necessarily anything that has to do with creativity
Well, what
and
people and well,
uniqueness.
we grew up in the time, and where the word collaboration became very
Mm-hmm.
popular, and I instantly, since I was a child, hated that term and hated that idea because, and I mean, even the one of the main thesis of um, Ender's Game is the repetition of
Mm-hmm.
isolation breeds creativity. And
Mm-hmm.
Scott Card was absolutely right about that. It's like it's the individual, usually the individual isolated and alone. You know, we used to know this. Like you go you go up the mountain. That's where you get wisdom. You go in the cave.
Yeah.
You know, that's where you get
Jesus
wisdom.
leaves the disciples and goes out into the wilderness for 40 days.
Yeah, like that isolation is what brings the strength, the power, the prophecy, and the creativity. I mean, you're gonna tell me
Mm-hmm.
Prince got his greatest work from collaborating? No, it's because he was a weird little guy that was alone, and he wrote like 100 songs before he was like 18. Like,
Yeah, dude was his own muse.
well, that's what every artist should aspire to. I mean, is that idea of, I mean, you can work with other people. I get it, but you need to be two individuals doing that. But what we're
Mm-hmm.
seeing, and there's a whole thing. Let's get into it, man. What this personifies, the statue, at least this idea, is the homogeneity of all things.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen it all throughout history, particularly in the 20th century, the destruction of the individual for the collective. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the whole point. I mean, the Soviets and pretty much every communist country eliminated sex differences. Is one of the first things they do once they get kind of power. That's why they use the term comrade. Everyone is a comrade. Everyone dresses in like the same jumpsuit because they become interchangeable to the state. And what's the
Mm-hmm.
importance of that? Once you shave someone's head, once you throw a jumpsuit on them, doesn't matter if they're man or woman, they're all doing work. They're all slaves.
Mm-hmm.
Now you don't have to think about them in gender terms. Now women don't get off for childbirth. Now men don't have to do anything else. It's bam, bam, bam. They're all interchangeable, and that's what we're seeing. What you going back to? If you're on the right, people blame this on the progressive left. If you're on the left, you blame it on capitalist corporations. I hate to tell it to you guys, it's everything all at once. It's cynicism,
Mm-hmm.
it's ideology. It doesn't matter. It's going towards the end result. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason we know this is because this is what happens all throughout history. If it's a god king, if it's an emperor, it doesn't matter. For some reason, humans like to organize themselves into a collective that destroys the individual, and it takes everything within the individual to fight against that. Now, you and I are musicians, and music is the most primal art form. It's more
Mm-hmm.
primal than images because you can do it with your body. You can just make a sound. You can beat something like, and it's ethereal. It's more mystical than most art forms. Let's be honest. That's why everything
Mm-hmm.
starts with it. That's why the synthesizer started with it. That's why the like the click track started with it. It's like, oh, now you can literally drag and drop a chord progression onto a grid. And I'm not
Mm-hmm.
trying to get up and under that, but like once you see that, it's like, okay, now we move on to art. The same thing. That's why people are seeing AI or all this kind of thing. Everything is to replace human ingenuity. Why? Because it makes it easier for people in power currently or will be. It doesn't matter. It's just once things are easy to control, it's easier to get power and it's easier to sustain that power.
Yeah, and the thing is, everybody, I say everybody, but there's so many people now who they see this happening, or at least they see a piece of it, and they have enough of an insight into it to feel alarmed by it and to be worried about it. But they want to say, well, it's it's Joe Biden's fault or it's
Mm-hmm.
Trump's fault, or they want an enemy that say if we could take that person out, if we can take that put somebody else on that chair, it would this problem goes away. No, that's not. This is not a person that you're dealing with. This is a societal structure. It's a beast that's been allowed to grow so big and so fat that you can't kill it now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not, there's not one person, there's not some little cabal that's sitting behind the scenes that created this, at least
Yeah.
not as specifically as people like to think there is. These ideas, you can take every evil politician in the world and poof, eradicate them right now, and these problems would still exist because are they're mimetic. They have infected the minds of society.
Mm-hmm.
They are in people now, and you can remove the head of the snake, but the body keeps
It's a
keeps
hydra.
moving, and it can still bite. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a mimetic thing. It has become, maybe, yeah, at one point in time, maybe there were a few people that sat down and say, hey, this is what we should try to do with the world, but it's become so much bigger and more widespread than that. It's a disease. It's a mind
Mm-hmm.
disease.
Well, and
Like it's a virus of the soul.
I'll say this. Well, this is why people believed in spirits and possession, is because they saw this stuff happening. They saw everything from schizophrenia all the way up to the madness of crowds, and they're like, "This is the same thing. There's a spiritual realm that controls people." You don't have to believe that, but that's what the entire human race. It wasn't just Christianity or Judaism. Believed all over every single part of the world at one point in
Mm-hmm.
history, because they can't, and we still can't explain these things. We've tried so hard to, and guess what? We're not going to figure it out. And if you did figure it out, it would be harnessed to do this. If someone
Yeah.
figured out what made humans obey a mass following or a populist figure, guess what? They would use that because that's already in them. It's from
Mm.
the start. So all that to say, the the idea of homogeneity, that's what it is. That makes everything easy. That's why like uh, um, social planners enjoy making things interchangeable, because then they can just get rid of people that they don't like or don't need. And the whole thing is they reduce people from human beings to parts in a machine that are interchangeable. And I
And
mean, that's just
and then
purely demonic,
also
you know.
and then also this there was that there's always that idea of like anything that steps outside of that, outside of that ideology, well, we have to demonize and destroy it and ban it and burn it
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. And what's crazy is, anytime you see, like the Nazis, they went through and they did an enormous amount of destruction to art and to anything that would kind of like defy the view that they wanted people to take.
So do the
But then you find
socialists.
out, yeah, but then you find out after the fact that some of the same people that were in charge of destroying all that art, that were in charge, were keeping a lot of it for themselves
Mm-hmm.
because they want it to apply to the population, but they don't want it to apply to themselves.
Oh yeah, well that's all it's always going to be. The one who wants power is only going to want it for themselves.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
authority allows them to stand outside of it and say, "Oh, it does. I can have these things, but you can't."
Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to separate the idea from people, because the easy thing to do, and the thing that people do, especially politicians, is to assign the idea to people so they can demonize people, because you can't demonize an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what unfortunately happens. But this stuff, this obsession with blending the sexes, usually is what precedes the fall of empires.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that to say, like, this, you can, because it's a double-edged sword. The same thing as with religion, like religious fervor and religious zealousness. Whenever you try to put these kind of ideas and personify these ideas and speak on behalf of these ideas, like try to make the world what it isn't. And this is what
Mm-hmm.
Stephen and I got into with Christian nationalism. When you try to make the world what it isn't, you get rid of people and you kill people. And
Right.
that's what makes it terrible, because you want to impose
Well,
your will on the world, and it's not how it should be, which is the root of alchemy, going back to this to bring it back together.
and see, that's why, one of my all-time favorite films was the original Matrix movie,
Yeah, great one.
because the Matrix, it was a great action movie, but from a philosophical standpoint, man, it really did show what the reality of your life. You can go through that humdrum, follow the rules, do your job, go through life and something's off, it's not really feeling right, it doesn't really like fulfill any drive that you have, but you go through the motions of it. And then to find out in reality, I'm just being used as a battery to power this giant machine. Like I'm
Yeah.
just being, I'm just plugged into a socket like everybody else. And there is a rebellion and a risk and a great honor that comes from the idea of waking up and breaking free of that and say, nope, that's not what I'm going to be. And yeah, the world without being plugged in may be awful, but at least it's a place where I'm free. At least it's a place where I have the right to fight back. Like, yeah, and that's the thing is, you said it's hard to separate the ideology from the people, and I agree with you, especially when you talk to someone that is so completely plugged in to that they almost do just act like a they're just an echo chamber for the stuff that's being poured into them, and they can't think beyond it. They can't
No.
see beyond it.
Well,
But
and I'm not trying to change the
go for it.
sub.
Go
I'm
ahead.
not trying to change the subject, but that horrendous well, thankfully, as far as I know, the kid's still alive. That terrible shooting of the young black kid by the old white guy. They like went to the wrong
Oh
house or
yeah, yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Terrible
yeah.
accident. Terrible thing. Shouldn't have happened. I said accident because we don't know because you have to presume innocence until guilty. But
Right.
I found out about it by looking at a friend of mine's like Instagram story, and of course he was already jumping to every single conclusion that CNN told him to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, look, man, no one knows yet. The best thing you can do
Yeah.
is like hope and pray for both parties that A, it was an accident, and B, that both of them come out unscathed from it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if it is an act of horror, which or racism, which who knows, whatever. If it is, great, judge it, condemn it. But no one
Yeah.
knows. Like
Right.
no one knows. So you can't just. But it's so weird, man. I hate using the NPC joke or meme, but that's kind of how it is, man. And then people talk about the anti NPC meme where people jump to the other side. It's like, yeah, I get it. You don't, but there's not two sides, man. Like there's this
Mm-hmm.
whole reality of multifaceted dimensional like axes that you can look at something from.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't even know where I'm going with that. Like, oh,
Well, but no, you're
yeah,
right though. What you've got is a large portion of our society, whether it's a right wing, left wing, whatever. There's so many people who have been so trained and so indoctrinated by either side, they literally do not know how to think for themselves.
yeah,
Every thought that's in their head was put there, and they never challenge it. They don't know how to challenge it. You know, growing up, and I've know you and I have talked about this before, but I grew up in a very very much a Christian family background, but I grew up in a Free Will Baptist tradition
mm-hmm,
church, and very very old school conservative church. And there's a lot of things that I loved about that experience growing up. There's a lot of good that comes out of it, but at an early age, my dad was like, look, if you're gonna have whatever kind of relationship you're gonna have with God, that's you. Like you and God have to figure that out. I'm not doing it for you.
yeah,
Like you need to read the Bible, you need to study it, and you need to have your own walk. And what I discovered at a pretty young age, like high school at least, not everything I heard from the pulpit matched what I was reading in Scripture. And there are people like my dad who I love very much, I respect him very much, but there are topics that he refuses to think about.
yeah,
He refuses to question or challenge or and my thing is, look, if you challenge it and it holds up, well then good. That's a good thing to hold on to. But like you've got to be willing with all of these things to test it, try it, and if it's truth, it'll hold up.
mm-hmm,
But we've got a whole society that does not know how to do that. They can't do it. You can see it in their eyes when you ask them a question they can't answer. They melt down and just scream and all this stuff. everything but a reasonable response. Nobody ever says, you know what? You've given me something to think about because they don't know how to think. All the thinking has been trained out of them.
Well, I mean, that's the point of school. Like, let's be honest. Particularly university. Like, I mean, I've never felt more cheated in my entire life than when I went to college. I mean, I went to college for
Mm,
music, and music was great, like, because that's pretty much quantifiable. I mean, if you really want to go to the physics of it, it is quantifiable. But
mm,
it's a language. It's kind of set. Like you can. It's better than a language because, like I said, it is quantifiable. These frequencies are what they are. Anyway,
mm-hmm,
but so many other classes, particularly the humanities, like arts
mm-hmm.
and English and all this kind of stuff, and like name it,
Or
name it, yeah, yeah,
sociology,
name a
any of that
humanity,
stuff. Yeah.
even psychology was
Mm-hmm,
all subjective crap. But that's the whole thing, is that use subjectivity to lower everything down, to lower past standards, to bring up your new standard, which is how you're supposed to
mm-hmm,
think. And I'll never forget, man. I feel such a jerk saying this, but like I had so many friends that like they took like one religion class with this one guy that was like bitter and cynical, and like as soon as they were done with that class, they were like, "Oh, I don't know anything." It's like, dude, did you read your religion before you went into there? Like, no.
mm-hmm,
Well, then like, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's your fault for being ignorant. Like, I'm
mm-hmm.
not trying to be. Was like, I didn't know how to do this. It's like, well, why don't you stop for a second and go, like, here's the thing. If we're gonna get into religion, if God is real, the rest follows. If not, who cares? But if
Right.
if you don't think he's real, it doesn't matter. Like, and if you do, then that's that, and he can do whatever he wants, and he can surely bring you through anything. But it's just the simplest, stupid little questions. It would be like, why, if God real, why bad stuff happen?
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man. We've had like 2,000 plus years. I mean, the Jews have had 5,000 years of that question. They already solved it. They already answered it. Let's go to the next real
Mm-hmm,
question. But
mm-hmm,
I guess what I'm trying to say, to bring it all back around, to go back to art, what you were saying, yeah, the reason we're talking about this is because this is the answer to that desire, that itch that artists have, or at least I had my whole life. It's like, why does everything suck? Or why does
mm-hmm.
so much suck? And why is so much bad? It's because, compromise. So many people compromise for the collective, or what they think it should be, or what they should do, instead of being an individual with it. And not only being an individual with it, but honing their skill and honing their thinking and really trying and really practicing, instead of just throwing crap at a wall and calling it art.
Yeah. Paint by numbers.
Well, you've got paint by numbers and you've got paint by shotgun, and those are the
Yeah.
those are the two extremes. And it's like there's order in the middle, and there's
Yeah.
beauty, and there's fire. I mean, that's the whole thing. Art is fire, and like the only way you get fire is having some kind of order. You have to have something that can be burned, and you have to design it a certain way to go up, because otherwise it'll burn itself out wide, or it won't go up at all. And it's like you have to have something,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to keep it, and you have to, I guess, like I said, feed it or hone
It's
it
a
and keep it
yeah, it's
safe.
a delicate balance, and I think like I agree. That's why there's so little that you experience now. It's so few albums or songs. You don't even get albums anymore. We just get singles now.
Mm-hmm.
But like it's so rare for me to hear a song and like it anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember the feeling of hearing one song and being so blown away by it that I went out and tried to find every album that artist had put out, and it was all good.
Yep.
It's one of those things that drives me with what we're doing with the Godfo universe with comics and all this stuff, is to put out something that hopefully makes people feel the way I felt the first time I saw Evangelion, or the first time I read, you know, like a really good X-Men issue by Claremont, and
Mm-hmm.
that like, man, this is what it can be. Like, this is what storytelling can be.
Well, to tie it all together, let's go deep into this. 'Cause, I mean, I've got time. Um, and this is where we really get into the art part. What do you do when you don't have sex differences in a story? Because so much of story relies on that. And I'll give
Mm-hmm.
you a point. Let's talk about Evangelion. The entire, or one of the big key things behind Evangelion is the young adolescent male psyche. That's probably
Mm-hmm.
the defining idea behind all of it, because he's surrounded by really, I hate to use the word toxic, but bad male adult psyche and female psyche, which is sometimes
Mm-hmm.
bad and sometimes well organized, very rarely well
Mm-hmm.
organized. And that's all, and that's the entire basis and spine for that story.
Mm-hmm.
Dune did that, and that was the whole
Yeah.
thing, is that you had the female psyche, the female way of being, or if you want to say female spirit, that had preserved history, that had deep
Yeah.
knowledge, and the Bene Gesserit
The
idea.
Bene Gesserit. Yeah, the Bene
Yeah,
Gesserit
but
way and the
they
weird
even
way.
they understood it's going to take a male one to harness this and do something with it,
Mm-hmm.
because if you want to get into really sexual differences and gender roles or whatever, if you had to base it down to a foundation, it's basically men hunt and women cultivate. Like, male seed goes into a woman and it makes a
Yeah.
pregnancy. If you expand those roles, the man brings home food, the woman prepares it and turns it into something beautiful. Men gather or hunt, and women beautify.
Well, like it's even using Dune because Dune is such a good example. Isn't it even present with the box?
Yep.
Like, doesn't the Reverend Mother herself even says no girl child's ever
Yeah, no woman has ever
lasted that long,
sustained that much pain. Yeah.
right? And the reality is, societally, like with this gender role stuff, you hear so many times, women saying, something to the effect, from the feminist side, saying something to the effect of, well, we go through childbirth, and no man could ever handle the pain of childbirth, the physical pain of childbirth. But the reality is, men carry pain in a very different way, in a very different kind of pain, and it's the type of pain that allows a man to be shot with an arrow and keep
Mm-hmm.
fighting.
Well, and I could
You
be
know,
wrong on this, but I think this was true. I could be wrong, but isn't it like scientifically proven that men have like less nerve endings than women?
mm-hmm,
Something like that. Which is why
mm-hmm,
men were conditioned to take more pain, and women feel
mm-hmm.
more pain. Yeah, you feel more pain, but that means the pain a man would feel in childbirth would be, which a man can't give birth to a child, but he wouldn't feel it as bad. He wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
experience it as much.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong. Anyway, I'm sorry to cut you off.
But no, but I mean, like Dune is a really good example of that. But you're right. What happens when we eradicate the differences in gender roles, if we want to use that terminology in storytelling, you get women that sound and act just like men, and men that sound and act just like women, and ultimately you have lousy character development because
Mm-hmm.
they're all the
Well, you
same.
can't go to the extremes. It's like I mean, first of all, yeah, women have greater nerve density. They have more nerve receptors. Sorry, I thought that was true. Um, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like, but you can't. There's a force there somewhere. I mean, and ultimately, if you have the two gender or the two sexes, not genders, and you're trying to go through, it gets to the point where a woman can't create sperm and a man can't create a baby. And
Yeah,
those,
you hit a
yeah,
wall eventually.
yeah, you get to where you can't fulfill those great archetypes, and that's,
Well, and
yeah.
it's become so much of an argument of semantics now, but the reality is, the way I see gender, and gender is, we may have talked about this before on the show. I don't think we have. I know we have in conversation, but like gender itself is a spectrum in a lot of ways, because everybody has known men or boys that were kind of a little more feminine, less masculine. Everybody knew that girl growing up that was
Tomboy.
a tomboy. The problem was society allows for girls at a young age to explore that spectrum a little bit more freely. It's okay. It's cute that they're a tomboy. It's okay for them to play softball and do pageants.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay for them to have, their own, have a bike and do all their, rollerblading and all that stuff, and have Barbies. Like, all that's
Yeah.
okay for the girl, But for the young boy that's anywhere on that spectrum of, beyond just he's a man, and no boy is born a man, but like if you
Well,
show
Chuck Norris was.
any, well, yeah, to be fair, yeah, but like, you know what I mean? If you show any emotion, if you show any weakness, if you show any sensitivity, then you immediately get that beat out of you, or we did. Like our generation immediately got like ridiculed. I mean, yeah, what fair? Like
Yeah.
you had to deal with all that stuff, all that backlash. You get it from your dad, your uncles, your brothers, your cousins, everybody.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that most young people, if they're left alone, they may go a little back and forth on that spectrum but they'll usually settle into what is natural inclination of where they are if you give them some room.
Yeah. Well, and the thing with that is, let's talk about the spectrum idea. It's presented in textbooks and ideas as in like a line, and there's a dot here and a dot here, and you kind of do like this. That's not how it works. It's two different stars, two different lights that, as they're giving off light, there's a gradient. That's
Exactly.
how you can't escape that light. That's how sex works.
Yeah. Well, and another good example of this is Jacob and Esau.
Yeah.
That Esau, it's very clear reading that story that Esau was very much a dad's boy.
He was a hunter, masculine.
He's the hunter, gatherer, that kind of stuff. And he has very masculine traits. He's hairy. He's, he has all that stuff. Jacob, on the other hand, is clearly a mama's boy. And he's more influenced by his mom. It's the mom that says, "Hey, let's go deceive your dad. Let's go. Let's dress you up. Let's disguise you."
He uses feminine qualities and feminine power to get his way.
Right. And that's something that he stays that way for a long time in his life. It isn't until like the crowning or the dynamic a moment in his life is when he's in a position where he has to physically wrestle with God.
He's forced to wrestle, a masculine trait.
He's forced into a masculine role before he can finally, and I think
and make peace with his brother ultimately.
Yeah. And I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what I'm trying to pull out other than to say that, most people, if you give them a healthy room as a kid without telling them who they are, who they have to be,
you have to give them structure.
Right. You give them structure, and then
structure
you let them
is to help grow. It's like putting a stick with a plant.
Yeah. And you give them guidance and all of that, but I think a lot of times, like, we see people forcing these ideas on children before they even have an idea of who they are and what they love and what they want to be. Like, they've already been fed an identity, and that's so sad and so sick.
Well, it's always presented as the idea of, oh, we're showing them options. Like, no, you're showing them what you want them to be. Which it is an indoctrination, and to use a certain word, it is grooming. But the whole point is that, grooming used to be a term that wasn't just about sexual deviancy. It means like someone is being groomed for leadership or groomed for a role. It means you were being instructed and taught a way.
Well, there's a reason why such a large number of false confessions.
Yeah.
People that go to jail, go to prison on the basis of a false confession. Most of those are young people, and preteens, teenagers that they don't have the capacity to think their way through it. So what happens is that they say, well, this is what I saw, this is what happened. Well, the police don't accept that because doesn't fit the narrative that they're wanting to hear. So eventually the kid will start saying whatever they think that they want to please the officer. That's the authority figure. I'll say whatever they want to hear to get out of this chair because I just want to go home.
Yeah.
And it's young people, they haven't developed integrity yet. Like they haven't developed the ability to stand on what's true and what they know. So they'll say and bend and do whatever the authority figure wants them to do.
Oh yeah, and to circle back around, we're not just talking about the trans stuff that's happening in America and all over the
No,
world.
absolutely not.
We're discussing every single thing from art to everything here because that's the problem. That's the idea. That people aren't finding something to stand on and fight
Mm-hmm.
for in integrity over a mass of people screaming that you're wrong. And you're not doing something that
Mm-hmm.
is not to give you power, but is to try to prove or give form to a better idea. And
Mm-hmm.
and to create something new that inspires other people. You know, you gotta. I don't know how you would make art without truth and without beauty. I think you
Well, and
would
I'm
just
a
make
you know
crap. You know.
I'm an elementary art teacher, but one of the biggest things I try not to do, is I try not to ever come to a student and say, "Oh, that's wrong. You did that wrong," because the message that it sends when I say you did that wrong, the message is you didn't do it the way I did,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what makes it wrong. Because that's not what I want them to learn. I don't want them to learn how to be an artist. I don't want them to learn how to draw like Mr. Adams. I want them to learn how to draw like them.
Yeah.
So like there are specific skills that maybe they need to learn this skill, and if they haven't mastered it, I'll say, okay, let's work on this, let's tighten that up so you can really understand how to do this. But I don't ever want them to feel like, well, it has to look exactly like what he did or it's wrong. That's not how art works. Now if you just scribbled all over your paper and didn't even remotely attempt to do anything, well then yeah, that's wrong.
Well,
But
no.
that's not art either.
Well, no. What you're
It's
saying,
not expression, that's
what you're saying
projection.
is the title, but together is that there's an ideal,
Yeah.
and the ideal is grace and beauty, and we should know these things. This is what abolition of man was about. You know that you have to have an
Mm-hmm.
objective standard. It doesn't mean that realism is it. It's just what is beauty, what is good, what is wonderful,
Mm-hmm.
and powerful and strong. And it's like, okay, maybe Mr. Adams draws hands this way, maybe I draw them this way, but we're both
Mm-hmm.
reaching for that ideal. We're not saying
Mm-hmm.
it's completely subjective. We're saying the method. We're saying it's individualistic instead of
Right. We're using the
subjective.
same. They need to learn the elements.
Yeah,
They need to learn the principles. And if they learn those, if I've given them that toolbox, then they can go and make something that looks like what they want it to look like.
yeah,
Not, it doesn't have to be what I want it to look like, as long as it's the picture that's in their head. If
yeah.
I can equip them to make that thing a reality, well, then I've done my job
Well,
as an art
and
teacher.
two great examples of that are Picasso and Trent Reznor. And I'm not trying to compare the two,
Yeah.
but I'm saying Picasso was a master at like 17.
Mm-hmm.
He literally had a weird natural talent that he could kind of observe and do like bam bam bam.
Mm-hmm.
He surpassed his masters super quickly. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
that's muscle memory or what. Like the dude's like Taskmaster. But then of course he started doing the more, I guess, different style. You know, he surreal. I don't know the proper terms.
Cubism.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cubism and the
cubism.
blue face. He was because he was so bored with like what he could do and push through, and he started doing other things. But he knew the reason his cubism and all this other stuff was good is because he was so good at the foundation.
Yeah, he knew the
Yeah.
rules well enough to break them.
Yeah, same thing with Trent Reznor. He's a classically trained pianist his whole life, and but of course he comes and makes like Pretty Hate Machine. I think that involves like people just like, oh, it's like really loud noise and this kind of stuff. Like, no, that dude knows what he's doing. He knows
Mm-hmm.
how to structure dissonance and structure noise. He didn't just
And
get
he
in there.
created a new genre.
Yeah, and he didn't just go in there and start bashing things together. You know, he knew
Mm-hmm.
how to basically kind of create with new elements, is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
because he knew how the old elements worked.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I don't know, that's just the lost art. I mean, and there's some things you're going to be good at, some things you're not going to be good at, but you got to have an ideal in reality. And this
Mm-hmm.
idea, like of the divine hermaphrodite, it's not achievable. Like you can't. That's what I'm trying to say. Like if you make that your idea, if you make that kind of blending, reaching towards something you can't reach, I mean, at least have someone else that has reached it. You know, I'm trying to articulate myself well. You know what I'm saying? There's
No, I know what you're getting at.
yeah, you need to be grounded in reality to surpass it. because
Mm-hmm.
reality is way bigger than you'll ever figure out. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we, especially in the 21st century, years, think that we've mastered reality, and we haven't because we're not Black Sabbath.
Right. Reality. Now, I think that if I were to, and who am I? I'm nobody for anybody to listen to. But if you're listening to this and you struggle with any of this stuff, I would never put myself in your shoes and say I know what it feels
Yeah.
like to have gender dysphoria. I do not know what kind of hell you're going through. Like I don't. But I will tell you this, like wherever you fall on that spectrum or whatever we want to call it, how close you are to one side or the other, that's not who you are. Now, society wants you to believe that's who you are because they want you to fall into whatever agenda they can push, and they just want soldiers. They want batteries to run the machine. You know, I mean this with every ounce of my heart. You mean nothing to those people.
Mm-hmm.
They do not care about you. You know, they're not concerned with you finding peace. They're concerned with you being on their side and being fodder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's not who you are. You know, I've always believed that who you are is what you do,
Yeah.
and it. I think that you do yourself a disservice by allowing yourself to focus so much on gender identity and sexuality and all those things. Those are not the things that should define who you are. You
Well,
should be defined by your. Well,
well,
go
yeah.
ahead and jump in
No,
on that.
running with that. That's what's been lost within a generation. You and I caught the tail
Yeah.
end of anti-communism in art, and people they
Mm-hmm.
still see it, but they don't recognize it. Like stuff like them, like the Ant movie and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. All those kind of collectivist threats, like the Borg, came from
Mm-hmm.
observing collectivism, particularly communism. And because all the writings of people who escaped communism are like, this is what it is. They make you a number, or they make you nothing. They make you this, and that's the whole thing with word games and this all that. Like, if someone can get you to define by a term or a word, particularly one they created, they own
Mm-hmm.
you. I mean, and this
Well,
goes,
and
yeah,
even to the extremes of capitalism. If
exactly.
you watch Dawn of the Dead,
Mm-hmm.
that was showing how the corporate world to create zombies out of
Yep.
us, just mindless consumers. And the moment that you allow some person, some talking head on a TV or on
Mm-hmm.
your TikTok to ascribe a
Or a
name to
professor.
you, and or a professor to dictate to you an
Mm-hmm.
identity, and then you claim that identity, you accept it, you've been bought, you've sold your soul
Yeah.
to a machine.
Well, that's the thing. Even if it's a preacher, and that's what the Catholic Church did, they took the term Christian. But of
Mm-hmm.
course, what's built into Christianity is that there's only one judge and one definer, and he's not
Mm-hmm.
human. He's human and God, and that's why he surpasses it and he becomes an archetype and an ideal. That's the whole thing, is
Mm-hmm.
that no human can define you. No church can
Mm-hmm.
define you. You do not
Mm-hmm.
answer because they won't answer to you on the day of judgment. That's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing that's the great human universal. And I want to tell everybody, and that's with going back to all this, like, man, do not allow yourself to be defined not just by other people but by their terms and their phrases. Like, don't jump on something and say I'm this. You are you, and
Yeah.
you
The moment
define
you say
that.
I am this, yeah, the moment you say I'm this thing, I accept this
Yeah.
category over myself, you as an individual has just disappeared.
Yeah. Now there's certain
And you
cases of
can
that.
watch this happen to people.
You've got to do it in such a way where it matters, man. You have to take on those titles willingly, and they have to be worth it. You have to take on the title of husband, of wife.
Mm-hmm.
Those are titles worth taking on because someone
But
else is reciprocal in that.
those are identities that you've chosen that give purpose. Those are identities
Mm-hmm.
where it's not what I am, it's what I do.
Yeah, and father and mother. And the thing is that is like, well, what is so great about the term father and mother? It's because I define it by what I make.
Mm-hmm.
I am creating something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not arrogance, that's you taking on responsibility. and taking on a
Mm-hmm.
title to be like, not, it's because I've made something and now I've got to become better to do that, to be
Mm-hmm.
that for that next person. And
Mm-hmm.
going back to the statue, the divine hermaphrodite cannot do that because it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
exist. And when you, if we
Mm-hmm.
want to talk, sex roles and gender, like the best thing, and not everybody can do it, I understand, but there are infertile men and infertile women and whatever eunuchs, and there are,
Those are outliers.
yeah, that doesn't make them less man or woman as the ideal. If someone wants to argue that, I'm sure they can, but that doesn't stop them from striving towards the thing. You can still be a wonderful husband, you can still be a wonderful father, wife, and mother. You can still achieve those things. What
Mm-hmm.
you can't do, it's just, it's, I mean, the word of Christ said this, like there are some men that have been made eunuchs by other, some that were eunuchs from birth. That doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
you stop striving to become the ultimate that you can be within like
Mm-hmm.
your own star of light. If I had to keep using those kind of similarities, because you can't cross over. I mean, you can't jump the galaxy to that other one. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's, you're just going to end up being mediocre at it and at what you were.
Well, it's the difference between embracing who you are and becoming excellent in that area, or just chasing who you can't be.
Yeah.
And to bring all of this back home, because I know we need to wrap things up. The Godfo universe, this world that we're creating in comics, movies, books, whatever, videos, games, all these different things. That's the idea, is that you've got a god that's it's a concept. It's not actually a god, but it's a concept, and it's trying to control the entire world and show and make. It's trying to eradicate free
Mm-hmm.
will, and choice from the entire universe, every living being, to become under its thumb. And the whole idea of the God foe universe is that if you stand up and say that thing is not God and it does not get to circumvent my will, well, then that makes you its enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a good thing, to be its enemy. You should oppose the thing that does that.
Yeah. The all encompassing.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
you have to oppose it. You absolutely have to stand against that thing.
Whatever sets itself up as God that isn't God, I don't care what sense you take that. Like if you're a Christian, or a Jew or Muslim or a non-believer at all, you should oppose anything that isn't God that is trying to act like God. You don't have to
Yeah, I
you
mean,
don't have to believe in God like to
yeah,
believe that.
yeah, absolutely.
That is the foundation of all of freedom. And I'm not saying that from an
Hmm.
American standpoint. I'm saying that from everything to when you're in the gulag, it's, you have to oppose the thing that tries to set itself up as God that isn't God, because the only thing that should have control over your will that you give up to is a divine being, is God.
Well, and even
Yeah.
God Himself doesn't rob us of free will.
Yeah.
Even God Himself
That's why I said
says, "Hey,
surrender to. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So all that to say, I mean, make good art. Don't make this thing like whatever.
yeah,
And again, I'm saying thing, not in a derogatory term towards people, but against this idea that can't be real. Like I've already said it, but yeah, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't call an actual human being an it or a that.
hmm,
Anyway, so Napoleon 20XX coming very soon.
hmm,
We've got a
yeah." You should
signing.
be expecting. Yeah, we got a big signing coming up May 6th.
Where at?
Galactic Comics in Florence, South Carolina,
Mm-hmm.
for Free Comic Book Day. We also the book is coming out really soon. You should be hearing some information about Kickstarter and being able to support in the very near future. That is in the works. We got, man, a lot of cool stuff happening. A lot of stuff on the horizon.
More podcasts,
Um,
lore videos.
yep, yep. So
ZZ
just
is coming, which is an in-world podcast that is
hmm,
really kind of like psychological thriller, kind of horror.
hmm,
Yeah, which is gonna be really cool.
yeah. So like and subscribe, uh, share, follow us on the YouTube channel, or on Spotify. Join our mailing list if you um what is it, godfatheruniverse.com.
There's a
You
mailing list
can
there.
get on the mailing list there. If you come out to the signing, we'll definitely try to get your email so we can get you on our mailing list there. Um, and we just want to stay in touch with people. We want to be in contact with you. We want to get you as uh, you to be in line with everything we got coming out. We want you to know about it so that you can be a part of it. We're excited to bring this world to you. We've worked really hard on this. We're putting our heart and soul into it. It means a lot to us. It's not just a empty story that we're writing for to try to make some money off of. Like,
If we wanted to make money, we would sell skimpy chicks on the cover.
yeah, exactly.
Man,
Uh,
that's I can't get into that right now, but that's a whole thing. Like I'm not opposed to cheesecake if it's done well, but I mean indie comics is like 80% that now for some reason because for some reason dudes will buy it. Hentai is free, guys. I don't know if you know this. You don't have to pay some guy like 15 or $20 for it. Ugh, and then wait 6 months to get it. We're making something unlike anything you've ever seen. I can honestly say that. I can say that loudly and proudly, and you can come back to watch this after you bought the book and all the other stuff, and when you're catching up on it, be like, man, these guys were right. So anyway, we'll be launching a Discord this year as well. We already
Mm-hmm.
have one, as you can see, is what we're using now, but we'll launch one for anyone who wants to be a part of it to discuss things and really try to grow this. We're going to do Godfolk Gaming as soon as we can, which could be everything from video games to card games to board games, just anything that's really cool and dope. We'd love to be a part of it and love for you to join us. So I think that's about everything. Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, sounds good. We'll catch y'all on the flippity flip.
All right, see you next week.